I'm thinking that this is the way to go. I'm a little self-conscious about things and but I am not gonna let it keep me away. So, welcome back to my channel. I hope you don't mind the quality drop. I'm using my webcam in order to take out my middleman, the phone. I find I'm having difficulty uploading my videos to my PC from my iPhone, and it's just annoying. So in order to at least get rid of that and not have to also worry about storage, I decided to record these more face-to-face videos on my webcam. That way I don't have to worry about the memory on my phone. Because it's always near to fulling. I have the bad habit of not uploading to the computer right away. But I want to let you know what I'm doing right now, and maybe we can talk about the stuff that's in my brain right now. Because I guess I want to talk to people. I want to hear from other people who are struggling as well, because I feel like a lot of social media is just a highlight reel of people's life. And I think that leaves a lot of people who are struggling on the daily feeling even worse for not having a good as good of a highlight reel as other people. And I find like I'm getting a little self-conscious on social media as I open up more. I don't know, before I used to not really talk about my psoriasis. I've been in a lot of pain, and I think I recently recorded a video, or a few weeks ago I should say, that I recorded a video that made me really self-conscious. um I know I haven't been taking care of myself as I was. I've gained some weight back, and my psoriasis is a little worse. And I don't know, seeing yourself on camera really shoves that in your face. So I've just also been dealing with a lot of other things, so I thought maybe I could tell you a little story time about my childhood. I I talked about this on TikTok, which is what has inspired me. And I've talked to my mom, and I've even talked to other family members that told me they didn't realize that I had experienced some of these things. And I don't know, there's something when something traumatic happens to you, I don't know, it feels like everybody in the world knows what happened to you. But that's not the case. And I thought maybe I should open up more about what I'm struggling, because I think a lot of people take this facade I have of, I don't know, confidence to be the real thing. It has helped me for most of my life to act like calm exterior and stuff, and then only showing emotion when you explode. That's not that's not who I want to be. That isn't who I am anymore. I have moments of that because sometimes I feel like that teenager again. That preteen who was treated like an adult. So I just I think I need to talk about it. So family members know, and sometimes it just feels like a bottle, and the pressure's gonna have to go somewhere. So why not decide to release that steam at a pace I'm comfortable with? I want to share, and the more I have shared, the better it has made me feel, not just because I'm saying it, talking about it, but to hear how others went through it, that it wasn't about me. I used to think that it was all my fault, that, if I was just something more, I'd have a better life or more money or whatever. So this is a hard story, and I don't know how to deal with trigger warnings and stuff. I know people don't like them. I myself have appreciated when I'm in a good mood and I click on a video that doesn't have any obvious sign of things in the story, to be told that these things will be these details so they don't blindside me, because I know in the real world we can't get that, but we're on the internet, and if we can save our mental health for the day so you don't think about a thing that happened to you or something you witnessed, then why not? So I have appreciated trigger warning. So I will be talking about a few things. So this is my trigger warning for domestic violence, for suicide, for just I think that's the big ones, to be honest. But trigger warning for everything, because sometimes I do feel very overwhelmed while telling details. So I'm hoping I covered everything with that. And I totally understand if people are annoyed with the trigger warning or just click out because they don't want to hear about this. And maybe the title will have an obvious uh, mention of what this is going to be about, but I just want to give another trigger warning. So, I don't drive. I have always found driving very scary. And um I got a lot of shit for it. As people saying dismissive things like, you'll get over it. Everybody has anxiety the first time they drive. I was like, yeah, I've heard people say that, but I feel, because I have been dismissed my whole life, so it could be just projecting. I get people are trying to maybe connect, but it just it makes it hard to open up when someone's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. You'll start driving eventually." We all have anxiety, and maybe they don't say it that way, but it certainly feels that way when people are just so dismissive. Because, like, even if it was just anxiety, why do you have to minimize it? Anxiety is a big deal too. But I came from a childhood, like, I didn't have the worst childhood ever, but I think my bad childhood, along with having psoriasis since I was very young, and having a very strong personality, just was like a mixture from not a, it's just not a good mixture. I'm sorry. I'm not very clever. uh but I think it's interesting. I don't know, what was I saying? I was talking about my childhood, right? I realized as I got older that I was already born into two toxic families, generational stuff, with a lot of things. And one thing that happened was there was a lot of drugs in my family, and there was a lot of domestic violence. Um, and I know that kind of cycle is hard to jump off of, and learning that has made me have a little bit of peace and maybe forgiveness for other people. Just because I wouldn't do that, wouldn't react that way, even if certain things have happened to me, doesn't mean, like, everybody's brain's different. And, you know, everybody has like their own slight flavor of mental illness. It feels like, even if you're not diagnosed. So, my parents were both drug addicts. And, eventually my mom did stop. But my dad, he never really stopped until he went to prison. So when I was, this was before my brother was born. That's how I could tell when things happen. So I was under 10 years old, and I just, my parents fought all the time, and they broke up multiple times. You know the story with the domestic violence and fighting. My mom is a fighter herself. She would, maybe I learned some of that from her, because I've seen stories and heard other things about other domestic violence survivors, and I heard a lot of them. There's plenty that don't fight, but my mom always fought back. But that made the fights a lot worse, and I don't blame her at all. I fought, even though I would have done the exact same thing if I found myself in those circumstances. I wouldn't just let myself, and my mom wouldn't just let herself, she said. And maybe that sounds like judgmental of other domestic violence survivors, but I am not judging anybody. I understand why so many people choose not to fight with their significant other, because it does make it it makes the fighting worse. It escalates the violence. But I just don't blame my mother for how she acted. 'Cause I have plenty of instances spoken up out of turn when I know maybe being quiet would have been better. But that's just not me, and that's not my mom either. At least when it came to those fights. I know I still thought of my mother as meek, because it wasn't every fight that was a fight, but I think she did learn fighting made it worse. And my mom would leave my dad, and he would come unannounced to the house and start knocking on the door. The first couple times, I think I let him in, my sister let him in. Why wouldn't we let our dad into the door? Why wouldn't we let him in? He'd come, like, knock at our window and say, "Hey, open the..." But we got in trouble. We got in trouble, and my mom would hit us, because every time we opened the door, there would be a huge fight. He would throw cans against the wall, leaving holes. He would do all kinds of things, and he would harm himself to get in the house. He lit himself on fire once because I was a little older, and I was mad, and I hated him. I hated him for so many years. I was so angry, I remember. Sometimes it makes me really sad, because he's not here anymore, and he needed help himself. But I mocked him. I called him a loser. I said all kinds. I was like 13 or something, maybe 12. Because my brother was around at that time. I remember being on the computer. I was up late at night on the computer, and he saw the light on, and he started knocking, and all the things in the past had already happened. All this story I'm about to tell you, everything had already happened, and how he terrorized us and played pranks on us, mean pranks. And he acted like he just didn't care, and he walked out on us, taking his check and everything. I knew everything that was going on because my mom told me everything, or almost everything. I only knew things didn't. I, the only things I don't know are things that happened when I was like at school, and they didn't come up again, or something like that. And he lit himself on fire. He lit his shirt on fire and wouldn't put it out until I opened the door. And I opened the door, and we would always get in trouble after that. My mom was violent too, and she would hit us. Huge fight we just encountered, and them being violent and threatening to kill each other, and then afterwards she'd come to terrorize one of us because we opened the door for him. So I was mad at him, and that wasn't the last or first time I mocked him, because I just was so angry, and I had such a low opinion of addicts, right? Addicts. I hope I'm saying that right. Addicts. I feel like maybe because I've said it so much that it sounds weird in my mouth right now. So they fought a lot. And he would threaten to kill himself if my mom didn't take him back. If you leave me, I'll kill myself, he says. This went along with his pranks that he did. There was one day we came home, and he had rigged some kind of weird contraption with like a wire around his body, or it hold his weight behind him back here, because he showed us afterwards. And so all his weight is being held with this contraption up in the closet. So it's where the closet goes. And then he put a noose around his neck up in the closet. And so he looked like he was hanging because he put it tight. He made it look like he was hanging. And he was like, like, scared the shit out of us. Why would I think that's fake? I didn't even know you could prank something like that. I don't know, 11, 12, something like that, 13? So he did this over and over again. It wasn't just one instance he did this prank. Or my story with the car. I hope I make sense. But I'm just pretending I'm talking to somebody. And please leave a comment if I'm not clear. I am going to edit this and jump in to clarify myself. But he did this for years, and my mom left him and took him back, and uh so they would be arguing in the car too, right? I wanted to set up the environment of this. What happened before and after? I don't know the exact series of events, But I remember just like being, not feeling safe, not trusting the adults in my life. So when my dad was driving in the car and he was screaming at my mom and my mom was screaming at him, we got to these apartments, right? And the apartments had where you can park in front of them, but a lot of them were empty. I remember that. And then at the very end of the street, there was maybe a couple cars parked. And he decides to turn into where the cars need to be parked. And he goes there and he speeds up, like he steers the car so he's driving along that parked lane, not in the street, but where the car's parked. And he floored it. To me, it felt like he was going 50 miles an hour. I don't know what it was, but it was enough where my mom was screaming, "Stop!" And he was saying, like, "I'm not going to unless you shut up." And she's like, "I'm not going to shut up." And playing chicken with each other while speeding up behind a car. And then he takes a second, like, right, like, to me, it felt very close. I don't know how close he was, but he got within a car's length, that's for sure, of a parked car and like zoomed out the way to make sure he missed it. He did this multiple times. You know, he did this multiple times. And I don't know. Every time I get into a car, it makes me so anxious. I don't even know what left is right. And I think like I'm gonna kill somebody. And it's just like, I've seen so many of the men in my life be so violent and scary. Because my grandpa was a scary dude. My uncle was not scary, but he could be very intimidating. And I don't know how to tell everybody who asks me, "Why don't you want to drive?" that it's because of these memories. I find I'm anxious about a lot of stuff, you know? I don't even know what else to say. That's all. He did that, and he did all these little pranks. And, when I confronted him, when I went to visit him in Mexico, gosh, that was in 2015. Um, he told me he didn't remember anything. I told him, "You burned me with a lighter. I mean, not a lighter. You burned me with a cigarette butt." I don't remember that. That didn't happen. Okay, I just made it up. He did it once. And it's just, sometimes I find it really hard to think about my dad. Because I got so angry about all the things they were doing, that, and how mean they could be with my parents, that when they wanted to be affectionate, I was having none of it. And when they would blame me for them not being affectionate with me. I do want to say that, like, I do struggle with this stuff, but it's not like I'm angry at my parents anymore. Right before my dad died, I told him I forgave him. He suffered a lot, and he had a rough childhood himself. I know. I heard that his mother chained him up to a tree. I don't know how true all that is, but I don't really know much about his childhood. Like I said, I spent a really long time hating him. So after he was put into prison. I think I visited him once or twice. But I basically cut him out of my life. I didn't want to talk to him much. I didn't want to write him letters. And I wanted, because his family kind of just acted like we didn't exist anymore, that when I became an adult, I didn't want anything to do with them. So I'm not mad at my dad, but I'm not the type of person to just pretend that everything was a-okay now that he is gone. I love him, but we never had a father-daughter relationship. So sometimes it's hard because sometimes I remember things and I get so mad. And sometimes I know I talk callously about him. I just I just resent that some of his family members have the audacity to act like he was an excellent person and to act like nothing happened. My dad's family, not everybody, but it was everybody who just stopped talking to us. I even heard through the grapevine that even though they stopped talking to us, didn't visit us or nothing, even though we didn't move from the spot my dad had lived with us in, they had the gall to go visit our apartments, just do a cruise by so they can see if my dad's woman had moved on and had new guys over. And that made me so mad. Like, you didn't have the time or anything to visit your brother's kids, but you can go check up on his wife. I don't understand. I know they did not like my mom. So, I shouldn't expect much. Not everybody, like I said. If you're my family and you see this and you don't think these statements apply to you, then it doesn't, honestly, because I'm not talking about you. But the ones I am talking about, you know who you are. Like, you know who you are. Anyways, I really appreciate you listening to me. I feel like I had like a really good session with a girlfriend. And, you know, sometimes it's just processing your own feelings. And maybe listening back won't be such a cringe-worthy thing. I'm glad I'm doing this early, so I have a couple days to edit. So when this comes out on Friday, I don't feel overwhelmed because I'm working on episode 2 of the color workshop, and I'm epically excited about that. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed my art wall. And you didn't mind my oiliness too much. As I tell people, you see me oily, that just means that my psoriasis is well moisturized. I have a scalp psoriasis, and I like that. I'm self-conscious. I'm like, should I even upload this? The quality might be too bad. Anyways, peace, love, and sushi. I don't like